Welcome back to the channel's Super Academico and Blue Eye Patch. Let us keep the reading of my book Clueders, Meire Pop Beyond the Cloud, available on Amazon. In this part, we will keep the reading of the Chapter 6, a reminder of the future, games, books, and digital life. Don't forget to subscribe to both channels and like and share the video. Let's go! We were walking with our hands together, for Leandro was still kind of pulling me toward the exit of the bookstore when a man's voice called for Leandro. We turned to the voice and saw a man in his 50s, tall, thin, with a beard and gray hair, wearing jeans and a plain red shirt. He walked toward us calmly. "What's up, boy? What are you doing here?" Hi, Mr. Mello. We were looking at some books at the science fiction and fantasy session. The vanguards of hyperrealism. He lowers the book in his hands and gives a smile of contemplation out of nowhere. "Meire, this is the history teacher I talked to you about." I held out my hand to greet him. He squeezed my hand a little too long and looked at me deeply, as if he saw through me. "It's my pleasure, young lady." So Leandro was talking about me? Not specifically, but about something that you seem to have taught him in class. He finally released my hand. Leandro was still looking around because I was still being targeted by some people. You know, when you've been doing this for so long, you can't really separate the personality from the job. What a coincidence, Professor Mello, to meet you here just as we were talking about you. Is it a coincidence, my dear Leandro, or a providential tragic failure, so that I could finally meet the girl who has been the beacon of youth these days? I looked at Leandro's teacher in surprise and began to bother with the way he looked at me. It was not like those filthy old men who look at us as if we were objects of their perverted fantasy. The internet is full of these stories. It was as if he knew something about myself that I didn't know. "Do you know Meire's blog, Professor?" "Sure, Leandro. Who doesn't know Meire Pop in this city? By the way, you write very well for your age, young lady. People of your generation seem to have lost the habit of worrying about correct writing in the name of hurry, which is not your case. Much of your success I credit to your writing attention, clear, concise, and correct. You have respect for the reader." "Thank you, Professor. I think I had a lot of influence from my parents and teachers. Someone who recognizes our worth. This almost goes to compensate for our miserable wages." There was a half-sad laugh on the part of the three of us, for there was truth and a great deal of resentment in his speech. Leandro spoke again to alert me. "Professor, we have to go because some people seem to have recognized Meire, and she's not feeling very comfortable about it. Celebrity is a burden, my dear. But whoever reaches it seems not to want to leave for anything. So this junk pop culture and fast internet celebrity literature taking over the shelves, minds and hearts of all world." "Not everyone, Professor Mello." I shrugged quickly. "Of course, young lady. Some will have salvation." Strange choice of words, using the future. But there was no time to think about it. We said goodbye to the teacher and left the bookstore. Some curious glances still accompanied us, but they vanished, except that of the teacher, who I noticed that had been staring at us from the bookstore until we disappeared down the escalator. Note: you probably already have imagined that this meeting with Professor Mello will have a special meaning later, right? That's it. Arriving later at home, I went to look at my blog, and there was the post about my presence in the bookstore. I had no doubt I was having my blog hacked. I changed the access password and did a check to see if there was anything suspicious happening in my digital life. At first, the rest of the blog seemed normal. I had not had time yet to make a review of the Maze Runner's movie, but some people were already commenting on the film in advance. Many who accompanied me knew about the recurring theme and were ready to build a network of criticisms and comments on everything that had connection with the subject. The breadth and importance of this would soon be revealed. In my social networks, there was a peak of posts and shares regarding my passage in the mall earlier. It even had some photos from a distance, taken from cell phones, showing me next to Leandro and Professor Mello. For a moment, I thought my quick appearance and recognition had been a mere accident, a coincidence that would test my ability to be exposed in public even though I was a shy and private person. Having some notoriety in my school, for example, is one thing. I think it stirs a little with the intimate wills denied being popular among the popular within the game of popularity played in the school environment of almost every young Western. But being publicly recognized as a sort of celebrity, like those who published some of the books we saw, was something completely different. The situation was unusual. It had already been enough for me to meet Marcos, who had raised me in high school. Since he had approached me saying that he was a fan of my blog, things had never been the same for me. But finally being approached by another teenager in a public place was something unlike anything I had imagined for myself when I started writing my blog. And in addition, the invasion in the same day with the posts that gave rise to all this showed how much I was not in fact in control of the situation. But who was in control anyway? After completing the search on my social networks, deleting a few things that I found inappropriate, I also did an organic search for my name on the internet. I was careful not only to put my name as a blogger, but also my real name. There were many quotes and links. It was an incredible digital web built under the influence of the speech and the time of the excesses of exposure. The cloud was filled with Meire Pop. I was surprised by a series of texts, videos, images, and audios that reflected both positively and negatively several of my critics and affirmations on my blog. Following only the blog and social networks from time to time, I knew that a lot of people commented on what I wrote. Not always very flattering, this is one of the consequences of notoriety, but I could not imagine how all that had been amplified in the cloud. Clueders from around the world were using many of my texts, parts of them actually, to build their own statements about the fight against oppression. There were various forms of oppression, for not all of them suffered from the same type, but many were identified with the oppression in themselves over the youth of the world today. There were also the opponents. They disagreed with my opinions and arguments. But they disagreed much more with each other than against me personally. It was as if a virtual battlefield had been set up by my ideas and that the struggles waged were daily. I spent about 2.5 hours navigating the digital cloud, crossing between one debate and another without ever finding a common ground or consensus. I almost felt guilty for having done so much damage in the virtual world, but then I saw that it was providing a rich information and critical environment for young people around the world. Note, it seems unassuming to report this to you now, but that is what was actually happening. You will realize that all this is going to become so much bigger than me, a simple teen blogger.
I hope you have enjoyed this reading. Continuing to support the channel's Super Academico and Blue Eye Patch. Subscribe, like, and share the video. Bye-bye.